Today we're gonna make an amazing tomato and goat cheese galette. It has a silky smooth goat cheese filling and a crunchy, flaky semolina crust, and it's topped with all the tomatoes. It's phenomenal. Phenomenal! Let's get into it. So the first step in the galette is obviously the crust, so we're gonna let that chill while we kind of prep our fillings. We are gonna make a semolina crust today, but you could absolutely 100% use any of my pie crust, like the vodka, foolproof pie crust. Any of the pie crust that I have on my site would be amazing with this. So don't stress if you don't have the specific flours. I'm gonna make this in a food processor, but you could totally do this by any of the 5 methods that I have up there. But I'm gonna do this because it's fast and also develops the least amount of gluten, which is good, and I'll tell you why later. So this is AP flour. This is durum flour. So durum is just finely ground semolina. It does have a higher gluten content, so we do need to be careful about overworking this dough. This is semolina. It's technically semolina flour, so it's a little bit finer ground. And this is sugar, salt, savory, and then I'm just gonna give those a quick pulse, all on their lonesome. Sweet. Butter. Cold, cube-ish. They're not actual cubes, they're just small pieces. So we're just gonna pulse this and check it frequently because, like I said in my other pie crust tutorial where I use the food processor, it is so easy to overcut your butter and overwork your dough and add too much water. And so we want to make sure that we are not doing that. So we're going to pulse and check. We've a lot of pieces here. So some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. They're getting smaller, like pea size. I'm just going to go one more kind of round of pulses. All right, so I'm going to put it through the feeder tube, and then I'm going to pulse it as we pour it in there, and then as we start to see kind of coming together, all right, I am going to add just a bit more. It is, you know I'm not. See, this is the tricky bit, right, with the food processor, because it looks like it's coarsely ground here, but because of the type of flour we have, it's actually quite soft and will stick together. If we added more water at this stage, then it would be gloppy, and then we'd have a lot of gluten development, which we don't want. So I'm just gonna move this to the side. So go ahead and get it out of your mixer. As I said, this is basically 2 crusts. I just wanted to steal a little bit, and also wanted to have one from my freezer because this makes a delicious crust for like a peach pie or something like that. I'm just saying, mix it up. Now we do still have our water if we need it, and I think we might need a little bit, but I'm just going to do a technique that's called fraisage. So I'm basically just rubbing like streaks like that, and that's going to create sheets of the butter. Now I don't actually necessarily want this crust to be as flaky as I would want, you know, a pie crust or something to be, but so I'm just going to dip my hands in the water, and that is how I am going to add just a little bit more, right? We are not trying to add a ton more water. We do not want this to be wet in any way, shape, or form. So we've got ourselves a little packet of dough here. This is way too much dough unless you're making a galette the size of this. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of divide it in half. And I'm going to take one, I'm going to put that in the freezer, and then I am going to take this one and I am going to put this in the refrigerator and let this chill for about 30 minutes before we roll it out to make our galette. So this is probably the most important step in the tomato galette, and that is salting your tomatoes, right? So we're going to slice everything, we're going to salt them. I have about 1.5 pounds of tomatoes here, so I'm going to slice them about like, I mean, 1/4 inch thick, and I'm not going to stress too much about what they look like. When I get down to this bit, where obviously that's not going to make a nice pretty, you know, filling for my tart, I am going to take this and I'm going to make this into a, I'm going to cut them into chunks, and I'm going to make a marinated tomato salad. Yes, I am. All right, and I'm gonna put them in my bowl. I'm gonna put about a total of a half a teaspoon of salt in here. Some of it is going to kind of, you know, come out, but I don't want to over salt them, so I'm just gonna do it in layers, okay? Because otherwise the ones on the top are gonna get all the salt and the bottom ones are not. So just do a little bit of layers here. I'm gonna slice these the same way, and I'm just going to be so happy that I have these. Gosh, they're so gorgeous. I love them. Okay, moving on. And then I'm gonna use a red onion. You could use white onion, you could use Vidalia. Yeah, I see you, Georgia. You could use shallot, would be amaze, but here we are. I'm gonna do red. I also kind of want the color from the red tomato. This is also a giant onion, so this is kind of a, you know, it would be maybe a quarter of a small onion. Now, I'm gonna slice this on a mandolin, and you're like, a mandolin what? A mandolin. So it's this fancy, this is a Japanese one. They also have French ones that are slightly different, slightly bigger, doesn't matter. The key here is to watch your hands. Always keep a flat palm, no curling. You don't want to lose any sort of part of your body because this thing will take it off. So always use the meaty part of your hand. If you get towards the end and you are feeling skittish or squeamish, put a towel there, and a towel is going to be your best friend here. So that is a beautiful amount of red onion. I'm also going to go ahead and just put the red onion in here with this, kind of salt it, get a little bit of the moisture out of the onion as well. I'm gonna go ahead and put the rest of my salt on the top here. Kind of just give them a little shake about. Shake about. You can see they're already starting to kind of leach moisture, which is great and what we want, and we're super happy about that. I'm gonna cover this up, I'm gonna set it to the side, I'm gonna let them kind of, you know, release some of their juices, about 30 minutes. And meanwhile, we're gonna make our filling. Okay, I am going to, I like goat cheese, okay? Goat cheese is like my favorite thing in the whole world. So I'm gonna use a lot of goat cheese in my filling. I'm gonna use 2 of these little doodads. Now you could just crumble goat cheese on the bottom of your galette, and that would be delightful. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a little pulse in here just to break it up, right? Nice. I'm gonna add my egg. So obviously this has to be baked. You can make it without the egg. That's totally fine. You don't need to put the egg in there. I do find it binds it, especially with the heavy cream, but whatever you wanna do is totally cool. So I'm just gonna let this go, and I'm gonna slowly add my heavy cream on the top. Just gonna loosen it up, right? Now I'm gonna stop this, I'm gonna scrape it down, and I am going to kind of add my flavorings, if you will. You could, this is great on its own, you don't need to add flavorings or anything, but I wanna put a little bit of fresh thyme. Just a few cracks of pepper, and then I'm gonna let it go. Oh, look, it's so smooth. Okay, just get this out. You can just keep this at room temperature so it doesn't, you know, thicken, unless you're making it for the next day or something, and of course, you know, put it in the fridge, but. Okay, voila. Now at this moment we find ourselves in a bit of a quandary because we have worked so efficiently that we are waiting for our crust and also for our tomatoes to continue to kind of, you know, leach a little bit. They need a little bit more time. I'm going to give my crust about another 15 minutes as well as the tomatoes, and we will check back in. I'm also going to preheat my oven, start preheating my oven. 375. Forgot to say it. So it's been about 30 minutes and we are ready to kind of finally assemble our galette. I've got my tomatoes here. You can see that they leached a decent amount of water, and then we're just going to take those and we're going to place them on this paper towel, kind of just absorb some of that last remaining moisture that had already come out, especially those ones that were on the bottom. So while those sit, I'm actually going to blot the top because I can see moisture on the top. I really don't want a soggy crust, right? There's still so much moisture in these tomatoes that you don't have to, oof, found all the cuts in my hands. You don't have to stress about there still being enough juiciness to the tomatoes. Okay, we're gonna set that over here and we are going to roll our crust. Okay, so I've got myself a piece of parchment. That's what we're gonna assemble this whole beauty on. And I've got my dough that I'm going to roll out here. I've got a bit of bench flour, you know, just, you know what would also be great and what we're gonna do? Semolina. Now if you don't have semolina and you still want that texture, then you can use cornmeal. Cornmeal is also delicious and serves the same purpose. So here we go, look at this. It's almost like we're rolling on a pizza. Pizza. Here's my crust. I've got my semolina. I'm gonna put AP on the top. Just rub that on my rolling pin, just kind of moving it around. Same concept as when we're making pies or tarts. You want to kind of keep it moving, don't let it stick, work quickly, all those things that we love. I want to get it about, you know, close to 1/8 of an inch thick, maybe a little fatter, just because it does have a bit of, you know, filling to hold. You can also make this center just a little bit thicker than the edges, and that way, you know, you have a bit of structure in the center on the bottom, but your edges aren't super fat. Now, we've done it. Transfer, you could fold if you'd like. I'm gonna chill this just briefly. It's very thin. It's 1/8 of an inch thin. So it's going to chill probably in like 10 minutes. I just wanna give it a quick chill. It's warm in here. There's like a heat advisory in New York. It's fine. Me and the tomatoes were fine. Now, I've chilled my dough just a touch. Not so much that it's gonna crack when I roll it over, but just so that it got a little cooler. If you have a cool room and you work quickly, you don't need to do that. Okay, so we've got our filling. You see how it's nice and airy, it's very smooth and very light. And we're just gonna dollop that kind of in there. I am used to cooking for a lot more than one, so that's probably twice as much as we need. I will of course update the recipe so that it's like an appropriate amount, but oh, look at that. It's gonna be so silky smooth. It's gonna like, yes, okay. I'm gonna put a little bit more. I'm gonna go a little bit further out to the edges just because if it does wrap over, that's fine. And I am going to start assembling my tart. You know, just, I'm not gonna stress about it because new year, new me. I am going to overlap because I want a, you know, nice, thick, you know what I mean. I like to, you know, we can hide some over here. You know, nobody says that the sides shouldn't get any love. Make sure that everything is coated. Now, all we're gonna do, this is the best part about a galette, is we're just gonna fold these over. Now, I like to kind of, you know, tuck and place like that. You do have to fold over enough so that it doesn't flip open because we did make a brise, so there is going to be volume there. I can also take a little bit of egg wash if it's not sticking or it's giving me trouble. And I will kind of glue even the pieces here together. And then last one, best one, fold that in, just using my finger. You could use the brush if you wanted, but honestly, why? All right, ta-da! Okay, now we're gonna brush the edges with egg wash. You can see how I made my egg wash up there in like 30 seconds. So then we've got our egg wash, just really lightly brush. Great. Now, on the outside, you can put anything you want. I'm gonna put a little bit of semolina, just for that kind of texture, but you can put anything you want on the outside. Sugar would be weird, but you do you. I'm gonna crack a bit of fresh pepper on the top of my tart. Just kind of put a few things at a time. Not a ton because there's a decent amount of time in the filling. And so I don't want to overwhelm the palate with time. She's done. Now we're gonna go ahead and put her in the oven. We've preheated to 375 and off we go. I'm gonna check in 15 minutes, give it a rotate. It'll probably take 30 to 45, but can't wait. Our galette is out. It baked about 45 minutes. I kept a close eye on it after 30. You want to see that your tomatoes have kind of, they've lost some more moisture. They've started to brown. You want to see that, your onions are cooked and that your filling has had enough time to set, because remember there's egg in it. You also want your crust to be a nice golden brown and to be fully baked. You don't want like soggy crust in a galette. This is savory. Now I'm just going to transfer it. This is how you know your galette is the bomb. Oh, this is such a pretty piece. Okay. Such a pretty piece. Like, look at her. Oh my gosh, she's so cute. I want to oh my gosh. The crust on the bottom is perfect. Do you see that? She's gorgeous. She's perfect thickness with like a nice thick layer. Like an equal layer of crust and an equal layer of filling and then an equal layer of tomato. What's up? Okay, sorry. That's a lot. Just put you through there. Without further ado, oh my goodness. Wow. Yes. The crust is crunchy, but still like has that savoriness to it. It's still flaky, buttery, and then like the creamy goat cheese filling that is just smooth and silky. Oh my gosh. And then the perfectly cooked tomatoes that are on top. Oh, wow. The only thing that's missing is maybe like a little sprinkling of Malden. Just saying. BRB. At the ready. Just a little oh my goodness, just some fleur de sel, just all up on top. Hold up. One more bite for me. Perfect. It's perfect.